Well, the weather for the whole of the south of England will continue as it has for the next few weeks. It's going to be hot and moist, with temperatures rising steadily as time goes on. There's a chance of steamy moments as we move into the... sod it. We never wanted to do this. We never wanted to be weathermen and women making innuendos about hot atmospheres and drizzly countries. We didn't want to be child-friendly. We didn't want to bang on about being for over 18s only. We want to talk about our sexy adventures. We want to be lifestylers, leaping from bush to bush as we sail down the rivers of British sex clubs and mountains of crazy experiences. The cheeky purple mamba, the liquid silk pumped liberally into our hand, the rodeo classic brief harness complete with Tantus curve, the Enjoy Pure One stainless steel dildo, the hot octopus digit, the ever so short messages on Fab Swingers, the sexy friends on Twitter, and the mighty vanilla alternative. With my best girlie by my side, we'd swing, swing, swing.
Get in the gym or to your car. With our advice, you could go far. We fuck things up and we make mistakes. And talk about our sexy dates. It's getting hard for this to rhyme. Just as well, 'cause it's bed hopping time.
Welcome to episode 95 of the Bed Hoppers podcast. My name is Mr. H.
And I'm Mrs. H.
Thank you for joining us today. In the background, you may well hear Noodles, our cat / kitten / tiny demon / stoked ferret.
Is the slash because she literally slashes?
Yes, it is because of that. She has once again been locked out of the podcasting room so that we can actually have a conversation.
I feel like you're launching into some kind of top 100 chart hits.
Well, welcome. Smashy and nicey, not off, mate. Baby, you just ain't seen nothing.
I feel like I should be getting ready to press play and record at the same time on my Betamax.
Not off, mate.
I used to record the chart show many moons ago.
On your Betamax?
No, that's a video. Okay.
I know.
On my cassette.
On your cassette?
On my double cassette.
Oh, fantastic. That's delightful.
You're doing it again. You're going into DJ mode.
Oh, my.
Yeah, but I don't know what that is.
So we've locked the cat in the other room so we can have a proper conversation. Today's episode is going to be an interesting one.
Well, I think today's episode will either lose us 1,000 followers instantly or actually might gain a few.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's a pretty interesting topic.
All right. Well, before we jump into revealing what the topic is, we've got some housekeeping to do.
Have we?
We do have some housekeeping.
This is boring.
So the first thing I want to say is thank you for everyone that's still doing the radio voice. I don't know why. Why am I still doing the radio voice?
You secretly want to be a radio DJ.
Secretly.
It's no secret now. It's out.
It's really not.
Just be out and proud that you're a radio DJ.
Fantastic. So thank you to everyone who got in touch about the Polly episode with Cooper.
Oh, yes.
We had some amazing feedback. Some really interesting debate with people. You might say a mass debate.
The feedback I got largely from you, my dear, was that I was flirting outrageously and was a bit pissed.
Yeah, I think, I think a lot of people enjoyed you flirting with somebody because, you don't flirt with me anymore.
Oh, we had this conversation just last night and you berated me, if I may say, for never flirting with you.
I know you don't.
And I said to you, actually, that's not true. I do. It's just you don't remember the way we used to flirt because it's been 20 years.
Well, I think it's because your idea of flirting is just telling people stuff.
It's just getting pissed and telling people stuff.
Fetch me a drink.
Oh, I'm so flirty.
I'm hungry. I need a snack. That's your flirting. So, to be fair, I am trained well enough that I provide you with snacks and drinks throughout the course of the day anyway.
Either way, it was quite an interesting conversation because it did make me think, you're right, we probably don't flirt in the same way that kind of, new relationships do.
How are you doing? You're looking pretty fine today, Mrs.
You flirt
H.
with everything.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
You're so flirty.
Look, I do not sing.
You say I'm not flirty and yet I flirt with other people.
What?
Yeah. You say I'm generally not a flirty person, but I am with other people.
Well, you aren't, no. You're flirty with everyone bar me.
Oh.
And I am flirty with me, bar no one else. I like the sound of my own voice far too much, as we're proving already. Anyway, if you got in touch about that episode, thank you very much. If you'd like to hear more about Polly, I know that By the By did a really good episode about exploring what some of the definitions are, what Polly means to them. So check that out and enjoy their voices a bit. I think you do get a mention in that show as well.
I do, but not in a way you'd imagine.
It depends which way you imagine, I suppose. But you do get a mention nonetheless.
I think I was outraged.
Oh, you're always outraged. Anyway, the other thing that I wanted to do, which was a bit of a housekeeping thing, was I think it was probably a good time to give people a bit of a health update, because a couple of episodes ago, we talked about Mrs. H taking testosterone.
Oh, yeah.
Drinking it by the gallon. I mean, I've managed,
like Popeye with spinach.
I managed to convince you that the only way to actually receive testosterone is through...
I knew you were going to say that.
What?
You're going to say off your penis.
Off your penis.
The only way you can ingest this is off my penis.
It's off my penis. Yes, that's correct. It's a jizz testosterone concoction. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the only way.
I only went with that because I knew it contains alcohol as well.
Well, depending on what night it is, it probably contains quite a lot of alcohol, quite fairly. Ooh. Anyways, how's it going?
Do you know what? It's actually going really well.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
How?
Well, for one, I feel like I'm starting to reclaim a little bit of myself again. Like my mind is now starting to fill itself with the usual naughty daydreams I used to have a lot.
Oh, really?
So that's starting to come back.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I know. But it's reminded me just of how much it left me.
Well, you see, you say that it's starting to come back. Often I walk into a room and Mrs. H is staring off into the distance. So now it's not just a blankness. It's because she's thinking sexy thoughts, I'm assuming.
It's definitely returning.
Yeah, okay.
I think you'd probably agree. I hope you'll agree. We've probably been way more active.
We have been way more sexy time.
Yeah.
You've certainly been... It's been an interesting change, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's been a little bit easier to knock those orgasms out of the park.
Definitely.
I've been knocking them out like skills. I mean...
They are now really, really quick.
Enough about me, but what about you?
They're much easier to achieve, and I'm surprised by how quick they are. Like, how easily.
Have you achieved one yourself yet?
Well, that would be telling, wouldn't it?
Yeah, really? I bet you did one as soon as I left the house today.
How rude. Well, anyway, suffice it to say, they are much more achievable.
You still didn't answer the question.
Well,
come on, I'm circling back. You've gone bright red. I'm assuming that's a yes.
That's the wine. Well, anyway, they're much easier to achieve and much more enjoyable and prolonged, maybe.
And there's been a definite change in sort of how wet you get.
Oh, okay.
It's like a swimming pool down there at the moment.
My God. Too much information.
Well, it is, but it's been a really interesting physiological change because we've talked a bit about before kind of this sort of situation that you've had. And actually, there's definitely been an increase of how wet you've got when you've got excited.
Well, I think it's doing its thing. It's doing its job.
It's doing its job. I mean, it could be that I've become 100% more sexier.
It's all that flirting.
So I'm now at 98% sexiness.
Oh my God. What happens when you get like 100%? Will you be like Jeff in Community and you'll just like explode like his ego?
That's the ego will definitely land at that point.
I reckon that will happen.
I think if you do the maths, you'll actually find that I was at -% sexiness if you actually work that one out. So if you did the math, well done. Thank you. No need to write in and tell us about that.
So all in all, a really good improvement.
Yeah, there's definitely been an improvement.
Really glad we tried it. And actually, my doctor called me last week to discuss it.
He was like, how wet are you right now, Mrs. H?
Well... He actually has had that conversation with me, but not in such crude terminology.
Oh, really? Did he say, how moist are you right now?
No, he didn't.
Are you sopping, Mrs. H? Is that what he asked?
Jesus, no. He did ask, though, how libido was. And he also, in a very delicate round the houses way, as only doctors will do, did ask, did I require anything additional to assist with any intercourse issues? I'm like, well, you mean like lube or something? He's like, well, yes, maybe.
That was only a maybe. He was like...
No, it was quite funny.
Okay. So broadly, things are looking better.
Yes, much, much better. I'm going to continue with it because the best results apparently are... probably about 2 to 3 months down the line. So brace yourself.
Holy shit.
Right.
My cock's going to fall off.
This has probably only been 3 weeks, maybe.
It's a bit longer than that, I think. It's maybe a month or so. Okay. What about the actual body issues that we talked about? How's that going?
So I think what we talked about before was that actually some of the issues I was facing, some of the biological and symptomatic things I was going through was having an impact on how I felt, with the body image. So it's clear that I haven't lost tons of weight since that conversation, but I do feel better.
Okay, that's good. That's
so
a good
I
start.
feel definitely more in control of how I'm approaching sex
Mhm.
and how I feel about myself and how I feel about our sex life.
So mostly lying there and taking it in.
I'm enjoying things a lot more.
Oh, good.
And that in turn is helping me kind of feel a bit more motivated to want to carry on with those changes and achieve more.
Well, this leads us directly into the topic of today's episode.
Okay.
So this is all about fantasy.
It is.
Since we're looking forward and since we've been talking about all of the things that we want to do when COVID is fucking over or when we can get out and see people, we've been talking a lot about fantasies. So we thought we'd ask some friends on Twitter what some of their fantasies were. And then we thought we'd compare notes around some of our fantasies. Now, some of these will be things that we want to do and that we can do. And some of these things will be the strange, weird recesses in the back of our mind that we're just dumping out onto a podcast.
I've got lots to say about that.
I'm sure you do. I think there is a strange mix in this episode, or there will be when we start the thing, but, only 10 minutes in and we may nearly have actually got to the crux of what we're talking about, is that interesting line between fantasy versus reality versus your fuck it list.
Yeah.
And I think in this sort of weird trinity, there's a whole load of things in there that we can pull out and explore. So that's what we're going to try and do. Now, we've not rehearsed this, clearly. We've not talked to each other. We've literally sat down quietly scribbling away for 20 minutes. And hopefully we'll reveal some interesting things about ourselves, kind of what's going on in our minds as well. And we'll find out how truly basic I am.
Oh, shit. You don't want to see my list.
So before we jump into our stuff, as I said, we went on to Twitter and asked a few people to comment and send us some DMs around what their fantasies were.
You know what? I'm really intrigued if anyone out there ever is going to include wearing a mask as part of a fantasy ever again after going through a pandemic.
Nighttime
no, I don't want to wear a mask. I'm never wearing a mask.
I'll wear a mask, but it has to be the other half, like Phantom Star. Heightens each sensation.
Yeah.
Anyways,
scratch that off.
So we asked a bunch of people on Twitter what their fantasies were. So I'm going to read these because you don't have access to them.
Oh my God. Are they some locked away?
No, it's just that you've got a notepad,
of
not an
information.
iPad. So I've actually got the screenshots of it.
So I'm old fashioned, whereas you are newfangled.
Yeah. Or I like to blow loads of money on useless stuff.
And I like to write.
I like big butts and I cannot lie.
I'm wanking as I write this.
Not for the first time tonight. Anyway, so the first person that we're going to call up, or first people, were Sex on the Fringe, and their post really explained it all. They just said orgy, ! With a picture of an orgy.
Now, that surprises me. Isn't Sex on the Fringe excessively beautifully wordy
Yes.
in everything that they do?
Normally it would take them a good 42 pages, bless them, to explain that point. But delightfully, they cut straight through the chase, beating the Twitter 40 character limit or whatever it is.
What kind of witchcraft is this?
I know, and said orgy.
I'm expecting loads, and I've got orgy.
Yeah, you got orgy.
Wow.
10 on orgy, please. Right. Okay. Which is, I think that's a pretty good thing.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our good friends, His Cock Her Tail, they jumped on as well after much prompting
Onto
from you.
The orgy? Or?
Well, maybe. But they said MMF is quite a common one for Vanilla Ice.
MMF.
Yeah. Which that's...
Wait, not MFM.
No.
MMF.
Or EMU or MFI or DIY. That's where the two guys can also play together.
That's what I thought. That's
Yes.
what I was just double checking.
Yeah,
You went MMF.
So that's a fantasy for Vanilla Ice.
Yes.
And they also said a gangbang is something that we have fantasized about together.
Okay. Yeah, I can understand that. I would imagine lots of people at the moment are probably craving a gangbang or some group activity.
Quite possibly. And we'll find out whether we've put that on our list soon. Purple Mamba jumped in and said, having the most filthy, disgusting fantasies at the moment involving beer, gardens, sunshine and cider.
Insider. Okay.
So we asked them to tell us more because this sounded fantastic. And they said, sharing potato wedges on a massive platter with people outside your own household, games of Twister in the sun with strangers, putting on lip gloss with no masks. Am I talking dirty now?
Whiskers on kittens. It absolutely is just going to be this one big, I need to get out and touch people.
It sounds a bit like it could be like lyrics from a pulp song, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it really does.
Sharing potato wedges on a massive platter with people outside on your own household. Yeah.
It was misshapes, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Let's have a look. So, Coastal Lovers said us naked on a scheduled, secluded, not scheduled, sorry. Clearly, this is why I needed to get my eyes tested.
I'm glad
today.
I'm not reading this.
Yeah, secluded beach and being
it could
caught.
be a scheduled beach.
It could be a scheduled beach and caught by another couple who then join us for sexy fun.
Okay.
Surprise, motherfuckers!
Absolutely achievable in someone like Desire.
It is, absolutely. But, secluded.
Yeah.
It was more, Desire would be the, planned beach rather than anything else. Our secret life. We're very complimentary about our pictures, but realise they don't have any fantasies anymore. It's as if their internal sex life had vanished.
But I think all that will pick up. I really do. I'm confident that once we're out of this shit show, things will start returning to normal.
What you need is a good fantasy injection.
Fantasy injection?
Yeah.
Or is that like some sort of catalytic converter on a car?
It is, yeah, definitely.
This car needs a fantasy injection.
Yeah, it's hydromatic, automatic, and sexomatic. So, Tony, with the wolf, said, amazing picture.
I like his wolf.
You like his wolf?
Yeah.
His fantasy has always been, or her fantasy, I'm not sure, I'm assuming it's a him, has always been FMF. Not EMF.
I need to get my head around this. FMF. So that's
two girls, one guy.
Okay, but not FFM.
I'm not sure it really makes much
know.
of a difference with the ladies, to be honest.
Who knows?
It could be overcomplicating or simplifying that.
Absolutely.
But, Running Foxes jumped in and they said, attending our first club night and party, connecting with another couple. Mm-hmm. Nice. Watching each other get hot and steamy with new friends and having some great sex together to finish. Achievable? Question mark.
Maybe I should temper my list. It feels a bit weird now.
Well, we'll come on to yours pretty soon.
Sure.
Monogamous marriage, bless them. They jumped in and they said, this is the question that prompted our most recent article. That was really interesting. My answer surprised us both. I fantasize about having a relationship with another woman. Mr. M wants me to have a bareback gangbang, but I can't see that happening. Mrs. M.
Two very different things.
Yeah, they're quite separate, aren't they?
A female relationship. Bareback gangbang.
Bang, bang, gang, bang, bang.
Try and get that on a t-shirt.
Bareback
Bareback gangbang.
Excellent. I like the way you turned it into like the crazy frog noise as you said it.
Oh my God, I did. I didn't mean to. I never intend to do that.
Excellent. MM, not MNM.
Right.
Okay. Said they'd love an all-in foursome, no holds barred.
Okay, yeah.
All in foursome, I assume.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. A no holds barred foursome.
A no holes foursome.
That is not a foursome.
Yeah, not sure how that's going to work. It could still be a foursome. Cornucopia66 said, definitely MMF, but maybe some mild BDSM and a strap-on.
All right.
There we go. And I think that was kind of the broad suite of it. If I've missed you, I'm very sorry. Clearly my reading skills need some work, and my screenshotting skills.
I think there's probably quite some expected themes there, given what we've been through for the last year.
I think there is definitely a theme of, I think that, getting back to having, I think, normal experiences, but those normal lifestyle experiences, getting out, seeing people, and, a fantasy just would be seeing and hugging somebody else at this point in time.
Kind of what you take for granted is the bread and butter of non-monogamy. You take for granted that you get to make out with people and, do stuff like that. And then it kind of gets taken away from you. So I suppose it stands to reason that the first thing you want to do is you crave going back to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not on my list at all. Oh my God.
How deep have you gone?
Well, like I said, we might gain a few followers, we might lose 1,000.
Okay, this is going to be interesting.
Isn't it always?
Yeah, well, we can't back that up in any shape or form. So, did you want to start going through your list? Or do you want to do one each?
I tell you what, let's start with my list.
All right.
And it's not even a list.
All right.
And I want to put some context around this non-list.
Oh, like it's going to be one of these lists, is it?
It's a subject matter because the topic of fantasies really fascinates me. And not because I have a kind of a prescriptive menu, if you like, of, here's 5 things I really think about all the time and they're kind of my default go-to, I can get off to this sort of stuff. It's not. Mine kind of blend in with each other. So there's a lot of dovetailing of these are concepts that go through my imagination. Okay. And they are probably things that are really deeply embedded in my psyche because they've been there for years and years and years and years, ever since I could masturbate.
Okay.
Probably ever since the earliest memory I have of kind of onanism, if you like. They've been there. So I kind of feel like that's just part of my mind. And the interesting thing is, I think for so long, I think I felt that some of these thoughts, and I'll call them fantasies because they are subjects of things that cause me sexual excitement. Okay. But they're not necessarily things I want to act out, and they're not things that are necessarily have any basis in reality. And actually, I feel, and I was saying this to someone earlier, I feel a large sense of repulsion almost that some of these things might actually be something someone wants to recreate for me because they think, oh, that's a fantasy, I want to make that happen. No, God, no, I don't want any of this to happen.
So this is really interesting.
This is in my head.
Because my approach is very different.
I know.
And I'm so generally speaking, between the two of us, I tend to be the more creative / imaginative one.
Completely agree with you.
But when it comes to sexy times, I'm a lot more grounded. So
yes.
If we ask who you fancy, for example, you'll reel off some sort of superstars,
mystical, weird,
or
unattainable thing. Yes.
You'll be like, I like David Bowie in 1973.
Rather than a person that's living now and available for me.
Whereas I'll be thinking, oh, that girl that we met the other week, oh, that's me. And for this type of stuff, I like to dream about stuff that's absolutely achievable, albeit a stretch for me, because that makes it more real. And the closer it is to reality for me, the better I feel. But for everything else in my life, I'm like, I might as well be a fucking Muppet. Well, I am, I suppose. But and live in a sort of fancy la la land, which is quite an interesting switch for us.
So yeah, it's a complete switch because for me, pretty much all of my fantasies, I would say, are probably based largely in this is never going to happen. I don't want them to happen because they're in my mind for a reason. They're in my imagination because they're not real. They are in a realm of something that's not something I'm ever going to recreate. I don't want to recreate them. I don't know why they bring me sexual pleasure. I don't know why I kind of refer to them and why I call on them to kind of get me to that place I want to be. But that's always been the way. And for that reason, I don't have this definitive list of, number one, I want to come home and I want to be blindfolded and walk up some stairs. And I don't have that. I don't have this prescriptive. I don't have this prescriptive menu of things that I want to happen to fulfill a fantasy. In my head, I've got images that all kind of blend together to give me this kind of cornucopia, if you like, of sexual imagery, and that's kind of where my mind is. However, there are some themes. Okay. So what I've managed to do is distill them into some kind of order of this is what goes through my head. And in no particular order, these are things that commonly have been with me since I can remember being sexually active.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep, as much as we can pre-warn everybody. I think we've given them the thing.
I'm just saying there's caveats there that I do not want to make these things a reality. Okay. So I just want to put that out there.
Is there anything in that list that you want to make a reality?
There are some things which can have some realm of reality attached to them. And actually some of it we have been able to visit in some capacity. Okay. Along our kind of life together. All right. But most often it is just, these are the deep recesses of my mind.
Okay, all right. Let's jump in.
Yeah, should we jump in?
Let's jump into the deep recesses of your mind.
All right. As I said, no particular order.
Okay.
So, one of the things that I refer to most commonly if I'm seeking some sexual gratification is a whole subject matter around hentai, tentacle porn, and Japanese erotica. Okay, so I've wrapped that all up in one big kind of title, but of course we know that there's probably a lot more to it than that. Okay, so just because I say tentacle porn, it doesn't mean I necessarily want to have sex with an octopus. I don't.
I love the way that you've leapt to that. Not someone playing around with like a tentacle dildo or something, or an alien space creature. You've gone, no octopuses, squids, might think about.
No, I've kind of put this all into the category of I have a really deep fascination with Japanese erotica and hentai and manga and tentacle porn, okay, as a general concept. I'm not saying that that's what I always think about, but it's definitely a theme that runs through my head a lot. Okay. And I think actually, if I put that into some kind of context in our non-monogamous life now, that's kind of draws some parallels with like group sex, I think, because the appeal of tentacle porn for me, I think, is all these orifices and things going into things. And when you draw the parallels with group sex, of course, you're being consumed by multiple phalluses, perhaps.
Okay.
So actually, on some level, maybe that's what I was thinking.
So why did you make me buy the Zoidberg costume?
So, I mean, the concept of being pleasured by multiple appendages is something that probably appeals to me.
Like a living mass.
Yeah, it's weird. I can't. It's not
Wait
that
a
I
minute,
don't.
this is why you keep watching Slither or whatever it was, or Sliver.
But I don't fantasize about multiple cocks. To be brutally honest, I don't. I don't think about, oh, I wish I had 6 cocks. I don't think about that. But if I was thinking about maybe the concept of, tentacle porn and hentai, I'm really turned on by the kind of the huge kind of penis shaped phallus type objects rather than, oh, there's a cock.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think what appeals to me again is the image of like perfection that's kind of comes through in hentai. So everything's impossibly flawless. Everything's like perfect, and you couldn't really replicate that in reality.
We
in
can.
porn.
I've got the perfect thing. What we're going to do is going to strap a couple of iPhones to your eyes and put you on an Instagram filter constantly. It's going to be perfect. Nobody has ever been this clever.
No, I think I'm really kind of drawing back to things that, we've watched together in the past. So this is where it crosses over into the reality side of things. So we've watched things like La Blue Girl together, Bible Black.
Yep.
Some really kind of popular hentai and, kind of porn like that together. And I don't think it does anything as much for you as it does for me. Maybe you've got a passing interest in it, maybe, but you're not it doesn't drive you to seek sexual gratification from those images.
I don't think it necessarily drives me to, it can feel sexy and it can be an interesting piece. For me, because I am a nerd at heart, I love the imagination and the invention and the cartoon and the storytelling that goes with it. But actually, I love the mix of something innocent, like a cartoon in theory. I know that's not necessarily true now so much, but with sexy time. So that kind of, for me, that's where my head would be.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy it. And, like stuff like Bible Black has been really interesting. But again, often it's not necessarily the tentacles and that, it's all the sort of weird themes that come up through the things that are kind of like, oh, I didn't know that could be a sexy thing. That's quite interesting. None of it's ever grabbed me to the point where I'm like, wow, I need to go and wank over this every single day. But there's been times definitely when I've watched that, I thought, oh, that's quite exciting. So
yeah,
I don't think I'm far off that plane, but
right.
But
probably not as invested as me. So for me, I think hentai like kind of breaks the boundaries of imagination a little bit, and it's not things that you may see in mainstream porn.
No, you don't tend to see loads of octopuses and tentacles,
So it kind of touches on those like unreal sex scenes that you kind of imagine, but you won't ever find in reality.
Starballs then would be like our...
I really love that.
Yeah, I know you do.
Yeah, I do.
But we both love that because that's an immediate crossover. So it has the Star Wars of me and the animation of me, and it has the weird freaky stuff that's going on
and
that you
the
like.
stormtroopers with penises for helmets.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think... Yeah, so for me, it's like a real genre that pulls me in sexually. I just really find myself, I would often think about some of the images I see in kind of those hentai porns that we've watched together. So, and also read. And it's rare for me to read things like, cartoon, anime kind of thing, but I really appeal to the imagery that's in the hentai.
You quite like sexy comics as well, which is
really
fascinating for me, because typically I can't get you to read a comic for love nor money. But if it's a sexy thing, then you tend to be a lot more interested. I remember we loaded up my iPad once with loads and loads of porn comics, and that was it. I couldn't get my iPad back for days.
No, I remember you at an airport for hours, delayed for some reason. We sat there reading this. These
you delayed the whole flight so you could read your naughty comic porn.
But also, I think in hentai and that kind of genre, you have the girls with like the ridiculously sized boobs and tiny waists and tiny mouths, and it's all very accentuated and flawless, and you would never find that. And I wouldn't seek it in mainstream porn. I wouldn't want to look at a woman with ridiculously inflated boobs, for example, that have been enhanced, because it doesn't really appeal. Whereas in this, for some reason, for me, it's like, that really turns me on. I can't quite marry it for two, but anyway, there you go. So there's my first kind of foray into the fantasy concept of hentai.
Okay, all right. How are we doing this? Am I doing one now?
Well, you do one, because I've talked too much, I'm sure.
Well, I'm going to be a lot more basic.
I know.
I've literally written, it's basic, but COVID, etc. So one of my fantasies is around actually enjoying the fruits of our labour in a way. So it's about having a couple back and now to the hop in and having sexy times in that space and in that environment. And I say sexy times, but really I'm not marred to what actually goes on, but it's that thrill of being outside. But so people could see us quite easily in the hop in, although we're doing our best to block out every bit of light that shines through and makes that a visible thing. But it's that thrill of being caught a little bit. It's also that thrill of being able to show off something that you've put a lot of love into. And for me, it's that really basic connection of actually hooking up with, and I'm thinking a couple, but I'm not marred to anything in particular, but just that fantasy of just going, oh, we can do this again. This is a landmark moment of getting back in. And I think for me, it's almost that representation of actually we can start having lives again and start living and having fun and adventures. So for me, that sexy times in the hop in is a symbolic, it represents all the work that we've put in beforehand to create the environment and all the stuff, down to the stereo or the drinks that we've got or the bacon fries, whatever it might be. I know we've banged on about it a lot and we're sorry about that, but fuck it, it's hop in and we're going to enjoy it.
You're setting a scene, aren't you?
Yeah.
For you're curating this. This is all the things that are going to build my perfect scenario of when we can reconvene.
Yes.
Yes.
And for me, it's that I want that moment to be as fun as it can be. So all the work that I've put into that stuff now and over the last 6 months or whatever has been about getting to that moment. So for me, the big fantasy is getting there and actually having it and actually having just a real nice connection with people. And that's what I really miss right now. So I know it's really, really basic, but it feels achievable, but just not yet. So it kind of, for a reason, it's a fantasy. So that's my kind of initial one.
Okay. And before I go into my next concept then.
Yeah.
So for you, is there a correlation here between what is a fantasy and what is something that you recall in your mind when you want to be sexually pleasured?
So I think...
So not a kink or a fetish perhaps, but something... do you imagine something perhaps when... Yeah,
so quite often if I'm thinking about stuff, it's very much based in reality. And this is what I was saying before, and that actually my approach is it has to be achievable. If it's so stretched and out there for me, it feels an impossible dream. And whilst I can watch things like hentai and get turned on by them or porn or whatever, it's not me, and I find it hard to put myself in that position. So for me, it feels like it should be achievable or just out of my grasp or just out of my comfort zone. So that thought is kind of that would be a goal for me, and that would drive me. So, and I've had dreams about this. This is although some of my dreams have been slightly more weird lately, given our conversations.
I whisper them in your ear.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, you do
and
that.
And when you're asleep, I subliminally put them in your head.
Which is nice if it, because it makes a change to Cooper's audiobook, to be fair. So, yeah, that's kind of where my head's at with that first one.
So on a very basic, crude level, because, it's me.
Yeah.
If you were just, cracking one out, got a house yourself, dogs in the room, what would your mind go to? Is that what it would go to for something that is grounded in reality, and you're thinking of something that you can create and have and enjoy? I
think so. There's a kind of few things to this. One is stuff that I could do, that I could be involved in. I think there's the something that I have done, the kind of reflection of something where we've done it and I'm reflecting back to that. But there's also that sort of the sort of wider fantasy, but often that's something that I could reach for or grab myself if I could just put myself in that position.
You're not grabbing Ass Master 5 then?
Well, so even if you take the porn, quite often the porn that I would watch would be stuff that I would want to do to somebody. So, and when I'm looking at that, I don't often see that person necessarily.
Yeah, you're putting yourself
I put myself in that because, let's be honest, 95 shows in, we've figured out that it is about me. So, and it is about me putting myself in that thing. Strangely, I really didn't like the VR porn where it does put you directly in that role. I was like, no, this is way too
I didn't like it
close.
either.
But the thought of being, I kind of almost, it's like, oh yeah, I can imagine me doing this. Oh yeah, I am fucking that person's ass, or yes, I am in that orgy, or yes, I am doing whatever.
Interesting. Whereas I know already now, having thought about the rest of my themes and having listened to you, I know that I don't put myself in that first person kind of role.
Oh, I know, you never do.
I don't.
No.
I'm always watching. It's always an act of
it
observation.
Puts the lotion on the skin.
And it's always going to be the voyeurism. It's never me in that.
And I think this is where we come at it from a slightly different angle. And that's why I said at the start, this is a little bit of fantasy versus reality versus bucket list. And somewhere in that triangle, things are going to move around a little bit.
Totally.
And that's absolutely fine, because as a discussion, I think it's really healthy to kind of talk through some of these things. Over to you. Next one.
Which segues really well into the next.
It's on a Segway. It's on a hoverboard.
My ultimate fantasy.
I honestly,
me on a Segway.
No, that would be like a disaster waiting to happen.
That'd be horrific.
I
Can
know.
you imagine that? No, don't imagine it.
It would be in the headlines like that day. So many people died because of woman on Segway.
It would be it'd be the antithesis of sexy. Me on a Segway.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, for some people, I'm sure I would do it. But
no, not me.
All right.
So it segues into the next thing, which it kind of features heavily in any fantasy or concept I have, which is voyeurism.
Voyeurism, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
You do love a bit of voyeurism.
And that shouldn't surprise you, because obviously you've had the benefit of knowing me for a lot of years now. So for me, particularly when I refer to voyeurism, so obviously I've referred to myself as not ever being the person in any of these scenarios. I don't actually put myself in I wish I was that woman being impaled on those phallus-shaped Japanese images. More, I'm observing. I'm always watching. I'm always the person watching this happen in front of me in my mind.
Makes me laugh so much, because you are the least observant person that I've ever met in my entire life.
There's such an irony to that. I absolutely 100% agree with you. I don't observe things really well at all. I miss the finer nuance of everything around me.
The amount of times we've either watched a film or we've been to a club and we've done something or watched something, and I've gone back to Mrs. H and said, "Oh, what about this bit? What did you think about this bit? What? That happened? How did that honestly, there could have been, unless there's some sort of fight in the middle of a club, chances are you miss it, which does make me laugh."
No, so okay, if I say voyeurism, more specifically then, if you want to kind of go down to some more granular detail of that, I would say maybe watching the act of onanism.
Okay.
And, like watching someone take pleasure in being alone.
Okay.
Is probably up there with one of my most...
You like watching people be alone?
I like watching people being alone, pleasuring themselves.
Okay.
Specifically.
All right.
That makes it sound like I'm just hanging around outside people's houses. I'm not. I'm really not. It's oh my gosh, it's so interesting. And I don't think this is a weird one at all. I absolutely know this is not a strange, crazy, rare kind of thing. It's really not. And I'm reassured by the fact that actually this is quite normal for people to be turned on by watching somebody
being turned on by themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So would you prefer to watch a man or a woman or a tentacled beast monster?
But you need at least 8 phalluses. Actually, more woman.
Yeah.
I would probably be more turned on by the thought of watching somebody, like watching a woman masturbate.
Okay.
It's probably more of a turn on. But, I'm very open to watching men as well.
Is this why I found you in the roof drilling holes, looking down on next door, sort of shallow grave style?
Oh, God, I don't want to watch the neighbours. No. No, I should point out the person needs to look nice. I'm not a monster.
This is true.
I want to be turned on by it, not repulsed. But equally, I've asked myself the same, do I want to be watched? Probably not so much, but it's not something I'm kind of not open to, if that makes sense. I'm probably more, and it sounds bizarre, probably quite embarrassed, I suspect, if someone came and found me doing that, because I feel shame. Because I think for me it's like quite a private thing, which begs the question, why am I wanting to watch someone?
Probably because it is quite a private
Probably because
thing.
it is a very taboo, private. This is like someone in their innermost moment of doing something for themselves, and self-pleasure is very much like that's you and your mind and your.
This is like why you like to watch me play video games.
God, no. I really don't get after that. But no, I think for me it strips it all away. It's not somebody like porn, for example. It's not somebody faking something. It's not somebody pretending that they're enjoying being fucked, or it's somebody in their own mind, their own space. And it's kind of an innermost glimpse into someone in their absolute rawest state, if you like. They're kind of in that, this is me and my mind and nothing else. And I kind of, that turns me on.
So while you're watching this person have a wank or knock one out, right?
Yeah.
In this scenario, are you having a wank yourself?
Oh, you mean in reality, or am I watching?
Whatever the fantasy is. It's...
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't thought too deeply about whether in the window within the window, am I playing myself while I'm watching that? Probably.
Yeah. It's you, so
it's me.
Chances are, and then yes.
And maybe this goes back to why I really enjoyed, sort of escaping into myself and having those moments where I used to bring myself off in places like cars and whatever on my own.
And markets, walking.
Because I think for me, it was that escape.
Yeah.
And I like being on my own with my thoughts.
Which is a worrying thing.
It's very worrying.
Very, very worrying. Okay.
But crossing over into the reality part, this is something that obviously can be recreated in reality. It's not out there. It's not in a kind of where we're going to find 8 tentacles. It is very vested in reality, because of course you're going to maybe come across this all the time.
So what we need is a stream of women just wandering around outside wanking themselves off. Yeah.
No, that's prescriptive.
A stream of hot women. I mean,
No, but we've obviously had conversations in the past where I've specifically said to you, actually, you know what? If you were playing with yourself and I walked in, I'd be really happy about that. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, what are you doing, you monster?
Yeah, but you say this right.
I don't want to set it up and make it a curated thing, because then it's not real.
But also, if I suggest that I'm going to play with myself, you don't like the idea.
I do.
No, you don't.
Just pretend. Well, no, maybe I don't. But at the same time, I'm actually turned on by it. So I'm mildly conflicted.
So clear
mildly
messages
conflicted.
Once again from Mrs. H. Right, on to my number 2.
It. You know what I mean?
I have no idea.
No.
I have an inbuilt Mrs. H translator, and even my 1 million languages, and I still can't understand. So my one is I kind of want to revisit the DP thing again. That's a fantasy.
Okay,
but I
took a sharp intake of wine at the same time.
Gulp. So I think our DP day, and we talked extensively about it in that particular episode. I think it was a really fun, sexy experience. I really want to
be less hot.
Well, 1, be less hot, but 2, be less drunk. And kind of live that experience a bit more. I think by the time we got to that point on that day, and we've kind of gone over it a million times already, we were tired, we were drunk, we were hot, but it was amazing fun, and it was really sexy and great. But I kind of want to do that again, but when I'm less of all of those things.
Right, okay. You want it to do it again, but better.
Yes. Well, I don't want to say better. I don't think better is the phrase, because I think it was a really fun, sexy experience, and I don't want to take away anything from that day. I think I just kind of want to practice it.
Yeah, refine it maybe.
Refine it, get better at it maybe. And I think that was a really fun experience, and it was really sexy, and it felt like an achievement in many ways. But actually, I kind of want to be able to do it better.
Interesting, because I'm concerned that if I was to try and refine or make it different, I actually really enjoyed the random nature of how that happened. And I kind of like almost don't want to break that formula of if I think about it, and if we were like, oh, hey, let's go and arrange this thing and do this thing, I'd almost, pardon the expression, I'd shit myself. Well, which is never good in a DP situation.
No, never good.
But I would worry and I would stress. And the fact that it worked so well for me is because we didn't.
I'm not suggesting that it would be necessarily a massively planned affair. I don't think, because I think psychologically that doesn't work for you so much.
Not for me.
But I think doing that again, it doesn't have to be a 12 hours of drinking and sweating and all that sort of stuff. It could just be just a regular night where we try that.
Tell you what then, when we next do it, just don't tell me you're planning it.
Okay.
So you can have the experience of making sure that you're perfectly well
at what point do I tell you?
And then just like casually slip it in at the end, like, we're going to do this now. I'm like, oh, cool.
Oh, I thought you meant just literally slip it in at the end. All right, okay.
I'm joking.
So, I kind of really want to explore that more. That was really fun. But I kind of want to do it in a slightly different way. And I don't mind if it's not planned.
Right.
But because this is a fantasy, I kind of want to experience it more.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that makes sense, because it was something that we really enjoyed and we definitely want to revisit.
Yeah. Do you want to go again?
DP or?
Well, fine.
I mean, I've only had 2 glasses of wine, but give me a second.
That's more than enough.
Yeah, I will. I will go again then. Okay. So the next topic that features heavily in my crazy imagination, I've actually gone with Lost Girls.
Okay.
Now, Lost Girls is an incredibly erotic set of what do you want to call them? Graphic novels.
Graphic novels.
That you purchased a long time ago, and I very much enjoyed. And you probably know more about than me about the history and how they came about. And truth be told, I probably don't really need to know about too much about them. I just really enjoyed them for what they were. So,
gentle listener, I believe that they are Alan Moore and a woman
Someone
whose
else.
name eludes me, who painted them, I believe, took sort of fairy stories and sort of well-known things like Peter Pan, Cinderella, that kind of thing, and made a bunch of sort of sexual explorations out of it in a way. But
Wizard of Oz is in there as well.
Yeah.
There's quite a few, and they're all kind of like they kind of merge into one another really well.
Yeah,
seamlessly.
I imagine they're kind of books where the copywriters run out a little bit and they've kind of but no, it's very much a kind of dreamy, it's beautifully illustrated, very it's like water paintings, very dreamily done, and in this sort of fantasy and exploration of sexuality, I think.
Yes,
along with a bit of plot.
Okay, interesting. And as I've said already, I don't go really into kind of like reading comics, graphic novels, that kind of thing. It's not really my thing. But when you showed me these books, I was really, really drawn to them.
Actually, no, that's not your initial thought. What you said, I'm not going to read that. Why are you giving me comics?
I did. I was really dismissive.
No, dude. These are naughty comics. Oh.
No, I was very dismissive, and I know I was. And when I read them, I couldn't put them down. I devoured them. I inhaled them.
Which is difficult because they're fucking heavy.
They are fucking heavy.
Yeah.
But I was absolutely immersed in them. And I found myself really, really, really drawn to the, not so much the way the images were drawn. I mean, that was beautiful, but I found myself getting absolutely lost in all these beautiful concepts around King and, again, the voyeurism,
it does
all the
out
images
like
that kind of go into my head anyway. They're all there on paper for me. And it was beautiful.
It's so well done. It feels like it's just spilling out of your head onto the page in this kind of lackadaisical daydream of sexy times.
It was almost like someone went, hey, this is your imagination. I'm going to pop it down here for you, and I'm going to throw in some imagery around, some of your childhood, like fairy stories as well, just to really mess with your head. And I was like, whoa. I don't know why I sound like Bill and Ted, but it was really
excellent.
really appealed to me.
But what made me laugh is you then went on a quest around like looking up story tales, like sort of erotica, and it was just an absolute unmitigated disaster on the things that you found.
Yeah. So whilst I would possibly put this under the heading of things that pop into my head when I'm feeling sexy, erotica, maybe it's not. It's more than that. Lost Girls for me summed up all the evocative images that kind of seamlessly go in and out of my head when I'm feeling that.
I don't think it's necessarily the exact thoughts of what you have, but it feels like it is spilling out onto the pages. The way that it presents itself is very dreamy, very esoteric. It's kind of this, it feels like you're reading something that was part of your childhood, but also part of your adulthood. It's
it's very clever,
very, very interesting thing. The nearest, and I think I know why you like it. There's such a sad song deep in. It's got that kind of as the world falls down ballroom.
Yeah.
Still a child, not yet a woman, but on the cusp of that dreamy.
Yeah, right. It's very dysfunctional and like really, really discordant in its kind of transition of, this is your childhood nursery rhyme things that you kind of you have and you grow up with, and then all of a sudden, oh hey, there's two men having anal sex in this page. I'm like, oh okay, cool. And Peter Pan's got a massive wang, brilliant. Never thought of that before. And now I'm reading it, I kind of feel really turned on. So it really, really, really pulled me in, and I honestly couldn't put it down. And ever since then, they've kind of been images that, I will happily say they pop into my head a lot. So if I was, on my own, or if I was wanting to reach for some image in my mind because I want to feel particularly sexy, I will absolutely recall those images quite easily, and they'll really happily pop into my head. So there was some really pertinent images actually in there, which then kind of segue into the other concept I was going to tag on to this one, because it's not a standalone.
A tag nut, I see.
It's not a standalone thing on its own, but it kind of comes into this a little bit.
Oh, you're getting a 2 for 1. Go on then.
I'm getting a twofer.
Get a twofer.
Which was then obviously the concept of two men having sex.
Okay.
And I know we talked about this on previous episodes where I really did say I had on my bucket list that I wanted to be involved in an MF, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. And I was lucky enough to experience that. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I feel really, really privileged and really happy that I have achieved that. Brilliant. But it's absolutely something that comes back to my mind many, many times. Yeah, I've got a real kind of appeal for me. It's like I really like watching that.
Now, an interesting one.
Do
you want to see me have sex with another man?
Yes and no. And I know that's a confusing answer, but
you'd think.
Yeah, but I do, because I kind of put you at the centre of my world in everything I do. Apart from tentacle porn, you'd be glad to know I don't want to see you with 8 phalluses. Actually, no, I don't. But, I do put you in some of these kind of images, because when I read the Lost Girls, and there was one particular scene in there where a guy is like, he thinks he's completely straight and he's married to this woman, and then he gets taken by this other guy, and he turns his head, and then he finds himself fellating the guy, and then he finds himself having anal sex with the guy, and he's like, oh my god, I can't do this is terrible. I'm like, okay. And in my head I'm like, yeah, I could put Mr. H in that position. Yeah, I'd like to see that. And I do, because that's what fantasy is, isn't it? It's something you is safe. It is safe in your head because it's tucked away and you can recall it when you want, and it's not going to hurt anybody because no one else is involved apart from you and your imagination. And I love that. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't probably put you in that role occasionally. All the time, but sometimes. And I don't know if you truly want to be in it. So that's why I say no, because I don't want to see you in a position where you're doing something just to appease me and make me sexually happy. I don't.
No, the reason I ask that is because often you've said that you want to see me give a guy head, but you don't want to see me be fucked by another guy, for example.
I probably would, but...
Oh, it all comes out now.
Let's not be too hasty. But again, I wouldn't want to do something or see something that you didn't want to do. So it is just that. It's just in my head as a fantasy. And I don't actually know if I want to see it in reality. I'm not sure.
This is awkward. Can someone please go to Pornhub and delete file?
I've gone on record before as saying that if you were bi, I'd be very happy.
Yeah.
It's cool. I'd be absolutely over the moon about it. And I'd be like, this is amazing. But I'm absolutely happy for you not to be as well. So it is not something that I ever wish you were. I don't. I'm happy with how you are.
It's the way you keep sucking cocks and going, look at this.
You like to join in?
Nom, 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 nom. This is so nice.
I know. No, not at all. God, no. But if you did explore that side of your sexuality, brilliant. I'd be very on board with it. You know that. But I wouldn't also force you into that route. And I wouldn't want you to do it.
With 12 different cameras would probably be excessive, though, if
No,
I'm honest.
I've said the same about my own sort of bisexuality. I wouldn't want to make out with a woman just because their husband or partner wanted to see that. Fuck no. I'd want to do that because the woman wanted to do that with me.
Absolutely.
And it goes, the same way with you. If you suddenly one day decided this is what I want to try and I want to do that, and great. But I wouldn't
swear,
ask
if I said that, there would be a guy here before. Like you'd never go on to the sites and find anybody ever. You are like the worst at that. But the second I said that, there would be like, you'd be like, all right, I've got 6 people lined up.
You know what? I don't even think I'd do that. I think if it was going to happen, it would happen in its own organic way. That's fine. I wouldn't necessarily seek someone out for you to do that.
No.
I wouldn't. So that's why I say yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, in my head, it's brilliant. And in reality, it may not be all it's cracked up to be. And I wouldn't want to put you in that position.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
And how do you feel about that?
Well, that's in your fantasy.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm not, to be honest, it's not something that and we've talked about this a number of times. It's not something that I'm actively seeking. I'm not dismissive necessarily of the idea, but it's not something that leaps out and appeals to me massively.
No.
But I swear, over the last week or so, you've been whispering in my ear about this stuff when I'm asleep because my dreams have been absolutely mental.
Oh my goodness.
I know, right? Okay.
I am going to get you so twatted later and you're going to tell me all about it.
So on to mine. I'm going to take a twofer here.
Yeah, you can have a twofer.
Thanks. I'm going to take a twofer. So, and after that, I've only got one more anyway. So, and then there's only so much time. So thank you for staying with us so far. If you have, the first one I want to talk about is actually about playing with 2 girls at once or 2 ladies at once. And we've done that before. That's fun. It's sexy. But actually, what I'd really like is the 2 girls to take control. Because I'm typically quite dominant, believe it or not. Maybe that's just a force of personality and nature, perhaps. But I tend to be in control more often than I am not. So actually, I'm really interested in exploring that, relinquishing some of that control and letting the girls take control of the situation. So, but that's also linked to, I'm really interested in sort of, and I do fantasize about sort of discovering this prostate orgasm. That's kind of like, as a fantasy, that sounds like it's interesting. And the fact that it's in my own body and it could be there and I just don't know it. And I guess it must be a little bit like squirting for you.
Yeah.
The fantasy is that it's achievable or that you seek it and that it's sexy or whatever. I just don't know.
And yet elusive.
Elusive elsewhere. And so I guess that's kind of tied into pegging and all that sort of butt play, which I really enjoy. But the fantasy, could be combined with those 2 girls. I don't know. But the letting control is probably part of the exploration to that, because I guess I have to get to that point, or it seems more likely. So in my head, I'm kind of like, okay, 2 girls sounds great. 2 girls doing all the work sounds pretty good. I'm not used to that. Or even 1 girl doing any work, I suppose. And then combine that with the sort of pegging stuff, which we've done a bit of, but the fantasy of that is really hot. Although You Were the Strap-On is terrifying in many ways. It's like you driving my car. It's sort of, it's kind of fun, but also slightly terrifying. Linked to the whole prostate orgasm. That's kind of the fantasy.
Okay.
So wrapping that all up in one weird package.
So you want 2 women to anally fuck you.
Yeah, let's go with that.
And find your prostate.
Yeah, why not? What we need is a prostate expert.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I kind of, is that very much, and I do consider myself to be a bit switch in terms of whether I'm dominant and submissive, but I am much more dominant than I am submissive.
Okay.
Because quite often the situation calls for that. And
so
quite often,
it's not by choice, perhaps, sometimes.
Not always. And again, this is person specific. So some people, I'm like, fuck off, I'm not giving in to you. And that is a thing. There is that. But other people, I'm kind of like, okay, that could go a different way and that would be interesting. I've got no specific person in mind on that, but it does feel like actually with the right person, that would be something or right people, shouldn't I say, that would be something that I'd like to explore.
I like that.
Shall I knock it back over?
So my last one, but maybe incorporates 2.
Oh, really?
No, they're combined. I promise. Fine. I promise they're combined.
All right.
And it probably won't surprise you. But the last thing, kind of on my fantasy list, is a girl orgy.
Gorgy.
And I say a girl orgy. I think I probably just fantasize sometimes about being around lots of women.
Is it because I'm so masculine? I can't back that up.
I think it's maybe because I am very bi anyway, and I adore being.
Can you be very bi?
As in, I adore.
You are
being
bi, or you're not.
I think there's a spectrum, and I think there's a scale.
You are on a spectrum.
I think there's a scale of how much you dial it up or down.
Okay.
Maybe in the same way as we discussed with the polyamory. It's a scale, I think, and I think some women maybe what do they call it? Not bi-curious. Anyway, there's a word for it. I can't remember what it is. Basically, how much you want to interact, I think, with the same sex sometimes. For me, I adore it. I absolutely love playing with women. I really do.
I know, because once you start, I can't actually get in a word in edgeways.
And I know we've kind of visited this area before when we talked about how we kind of entered the non-monogamy realm. And for me, it was probably initially because I wanted to satisfy that initially. I've grown to, love and accept that there's other parts of the whole thing that I've really enjoyed and I didn't think would happen.
Yeah.
Brilliant. But it comes down to the fact that I really enjoy being with women. So I think somewhere in my fantasy, there's possibly this scenario where there are like plenty of women and they're all gorgeous and boobs and lovely and I like kissing women, and I love the concept of it. Now, I've talked already about how I know that my fantasies don't necessarily hold a basis in reality sometimes, and actually I don't really need this to be reality. It's fine in my head.
But we have talked about this.
We've talked a little bit about
this.
it.
This could be. It's not without the sort of outside the realms of possibility.
It's not.
But it's not an easy thing to line up, I think. And the reason why I say that is because for you to do that, I guess I have to be occupied.
Absolutely.
Like a child.
Well, by its very nature, it's an all-girl orgy. But yes, absolutely. But equally, I think if I was going to try and put this into some realm of reality, it would probably involve you as being in this kind of peppy pile, but with multiple women for me to enjoy while you're with
like a woman as well. I don't know, like a 70% women,
Maybe.
30% men orgy.
Yeah.
Or I Mrs. Doubtfire the shit out of it.
So, yeah, maybe an orgy that is heavily female dominant, perhaps, so that there would be plenty of female fun for me to have. And at
plenty
the same
of clunge for you, yeah.
It's not all about the clunge.
No, I know it's not all about the clunch.
So yeah, it's not. But that's something that probably features in my head quite a bit if I was to think about, and certainly if I was to think on that basic crude level that I was asking you, whoa, what would you think about if you were just having a quick wank? Actually in my head I probably would think about women together, kissing, all the stuff.
All right then.
Yeah, which brings me on to my last part of a twofer, which I was talking about.
Okay.
More recently, maybe this is combined with reclaiming some of my lost mojo.
Okay.
Maybe. I've been thinking more about the squirting stuff.
Okay.
Maybe. And I know you've already kind of talked a little bit about, the prostate kind of thing, and the fact that you have this kind of thing within you that you're capable of, perhaps this biological function that you can do, but you haven't quite tapped into it enough, and you kind of want to know more and you want to explore more. And again, I don't necessarily want to do it myself prolifically, but I enjoy the concept and I enjoy watching it, maybe. So actually, maybe what I kind of want more is to see that happen in front of me,
all right,
rather than me do it.
Okay.
Although I do like the fact that you do it for me sometimes, and that's cool.
Okay.
But maybe the appeal, and I've seen you do it to other women, and actually that's really hot. So maybe that's where it's more of a turn on.
Okay.
Interesting.
Oh, that's good.
That's good.
That's good. Bodes well.
Because I have these 5 women right here.
Yeah.
They're all lined up ready.
They're all COVID tested and ready to get in the bedroom.
Set of towels.
Yeah, exactly. That's fine. So the odds I kind of like. So my number 5.
Oh.
Number 5. Not that I've really been
number
counting.
wang.
Number wang is, and I guess it goes back to stuff we've already talked about, is the orgy with friends. And in my head, this is a specifically a weekend away where we go somewhere nice with a bunch of amazing people, and we're very, very lucky in this lifestyle, and that our friends are fucking incredible.
Can there be 70% women there?
It's going to be awkward asking them not to bring their male partners with them.
Oh. We'll just invite more women.
No. What we do is we get the Sapphic swingers over.
Ah, yes.
There we go. Changes the odds already.
Oh, yeah. I would love to play with them.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they're lovely ladies.
So would I, but it's never going to fucking happen.
Live vicariously through me.
That's right. Oh, hello, I'm a lady.
He's not, he's lying.
Stone him. Anyways, so the orgy with friends is about going somewhere nice and having a weekend experience with people, because we've done that before a long time ago on our adventures. And it was this real, and even if sexy times didn't happen, that bonding experience of all being away, being somewhere nice, everyone relaxes, everyone's on that holiday mode. I love that. And that's part of the fun. But if actually it ended up in some sort of big sexy time where everyone's involved and everyone knows how everyone can interact with the other, that sounds fucking incredible to me. So that's kind of where my head's at with that. I have 2 bonus ones, though.
You got 2 bonus? What?
I've got 2 bonus ones. So outside of that, my other fantasy is the bed helper social.
Okay, that's not a very sexual fantasy, though, is it?
Well,
or is it going to turn sexy?
Well, I think the fantasy in itself is that this thing, it happens and it's great, and it leads us to do so much more. And because my fantasies aren't just sort of sexy things, it's about aspirations, it's about goals, it's about what I want to achieve, and part of that for me is around that community spirit, because that plays a lot to me.
My goodness, even your fantasies are Jedi. You're so altruistic with your fantasy, whereas I'm all very selfish and they're all about me and my mind.
Well, you'll like the last one, because I think that the last one outside of that, and maybe it's something that we can arrange at some point, once we've got experience in arranging the social and stuff, is that sort of masquerade ball. As the world falls down.
Can we all dress as Goblin King?
We can.
Yes.
And your baby brother will be my...
Oh my God. Amazing.
So I love the idea of a masquerade ball where everyone's doing the whole mask thing, but dressing up brilliantly, and it's...
Oh no, that's why you were laughing when I said no one's going to wear masks again.
Well, I know, because... but I think... I know that it appeals to you.
It does.
Because you like this, you love Eye to Eye Shut, you like that mystery.
I do.
But almost the sort of
I like escapism.
Teenage fantasy escapism that runs with it.
I do.
So I know that appeals to you. I like the costume, the extravagance, the environment. So it feels like something and we did something very similar to this going back again a long time ago.
Yeah, an Alice in Wonderland themed thing.
Yeah,
didn't we?
and
so yeah,
that was so much fun.
Oh, it was.
So
yeah,
for me, I kind of want to do that, and I would, because when we did these things, we were very early on our adventures. There weren't many sexy times that kind of happened at the back of it. Ties back to number 4 there. But actually...
That's number 1.
That's number 1. With the right group of people, again, and for me, a lot of this is about having the right people in place, having all the chess board lined up right. But having those adventures with the people that we love and that we care about and that we want to have fun, sexy times with, that could just be incredible. So that's kind of the bonus one for me.
You can have that bonus.
Thank you.
I absolutely...
I endorse this message.
I adore the idea of this escape from reality concept. Because, and I think that's what really really makes me tick sometimes, is that escapism. And that's probably why I do retreat into my head so much. And I don't necessarily want to make things a reality, because actually I know they're better in my fantasy than they'll ever be in a reality. But this, I can understand that you could have a version of that.
Yeah, and quite often with some of my fantasies, or most of them in fact, it's not that I understand it's not going to be perfect. I understand it's not the movie version. It's not even the TV version.
It's okay that mine's not movie quality.
Yes, it's all right that mine's not movie quality. It's all right that mine's not movie quality. It's the fact that you can achieve some of this stuff, and because it's out of our control, because it's not the dream that we're controlling, the random things that will happen as a result of that, some of them will be crap, but some of them will be far better than we could ever imagine. And for me, it's that roll of the dice moment that actually makes it worthwhile. So as great as my imagination could be, although I've not really demonstrated that with these fantasies in particular, the concept of what we're doing and the reality of them could be even more powerful and give us even more memories that we can take with us.
I feel like you're going to descend into some labyrinth monologue script there.
No, I'm not descending into...
Your kingdom is as great.
You have no power over me, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, what I really wanted to round up with, because we've kind of waffled on for enough, really, is that it's been really fascinating to chat about all of our fantasies. And I think it's so healthy to sit down and have that conversation.
Me too. Yeah.
And some of my favourite moments with Mrs. H, with my wife, have been going out and having a bite to eat. It doesn't have to involve food, but that's just the particular examples that I'm thinking of. Where
me you're talking about.
Yeah.
Everything involves food.
Yeah, everything.
On some level.
Probably. But going out and having that chat and that discussion and just getting to know our inner workings has been some of my most favourite moments. What are you thinking about when you sit down and have a wank, or when you're having sex? What is going through your head? What is it that you'd like to do? And all of those things, from the fantasies to the realities to the what could we do if we put our minds together and work towards it, have been incredible. And so far, that journey has been incredibly rewarding. And even if it doesn't live up to the reality, even if the experience isn't what you think it could be, I'm thinking of our first unicorn that we played with, and I'm thinking of all those different things that happened.
It was definitely better in my fantasy.
Maybe, but those stories and those experiences have helped us shape the other experiences and those other stories and bend things to make them closer to the real fantasies that we've got ahead, and sometimes even better.
I do agree. I think the fact that you have the fantasies in the first place is really positive. And I love the fact that, people often say I don't have a good imagination. And I say it myself, because I actually don't when it comes to, if someone said to me, tell me what you want me to do to you, I'll be like, I don't know, but I can think of something. I just don't want to share it with you. So it's not that I don't have a good imagination, and it's not that I don't have, I actually have a vivid imagination. It's mine. And sometimes I like to keep it mine. And that's a bit weird. And I know sharing is caring, but it's not always good to do that. And actually some of your fantasies might well be best kept that way. But equally, it's nice, as you say, to sometimes I love knowing what makes people tick. I love getting inside people's heads and hearing about what turns you on and what makes you tick and what makes you want, what do you desire and why. That's amazing. And I love that we can then kind of progress into the next level of, well, hey, we're 4 of us here and we can do this thing and this might happen and this is great. And awesome as well.
I think there is something around the fact that, some fantasies are, they do need to be kept as a fantasy.
They do, and some are for your own protection.
Yeah, at 100%. But I think equally discussing those with your partner or in a safe space is absolutely the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And there are things that you can do to not necessarily make that fantasy a reality, but actually just have a flavour of it, which can be enough to do the business for you.
Yeah, I know.
So
Are you going to dress up as Jareth tonight?
Your eyes can be so cruel. Anyways, what I would say is that, we're all locked down, or we certainly are in the UK. We've got no sight yet of when we're going to be able to go out and
none at all.
do fun things. So, if you've got a spare Saturday night, got a spare 5 minutes or whatever, why not have that conversation? Now's a great time to have that stuff and talk through it.
Yeah.
And you never know, if your fantasies align and they're all perfectly achievable, then you could be absolutely changing your relationship.
It can reignite things, I think. And I do vividly recall that night we went out many years ago. And you're right, we did have some pizza and some wine and it was great. But weirdly, as the night progressed, we just got a bit bold and started spilling what was in our heads. And it was amazing. And even though we didn't necessarily go home and make all of the things happen, because actually you can't make some of these things happen, it was just amazing to get a load off and share it.
It's always nice getting a load off.
But it's nice because you think, oh my God, I'm trusting this person with something that has, only ever been in my head. And maybe it really turns you on to hear it out loud and talk about it. It's exciting.
Very much so. So on that note, Mrs. H, do you want to do your thing?
Well, thank you for hopping into our bed.
Oh, I want to say today, just out of pure randomness, 5 years ago today, we were
had some conversations.
We were in Fuerteventura, and it was the whole experience, and we've talked about it many times on the show, that kicked off our journey into the lifestyle.
Oh my goodness!
So it was quite funny because it just popped up on our Facebook and whatnot, and said, "Hey, you guys were here," and
we
literally
were like, that was the night we had that. Oh,
yeah, and so that's been quite an amazing journey. Who'd have thought 5 years ago we'd have sat here drinking Chateau Le Chateau. Licking roads clean and all that sort of stuff. So
5 years. It's our 5 year. It's not a swing anniversary because we didn't start swinging 5 years ago, but we had the conversation that led us to this.
Yeah, amazing
lifestyle.
We mark all of our conversations, really. I mean, 12 years ago was the first day that we decided to have a burger together. Anyway.
Always involves food.
It always does.
But weirdly, splooshing is not in my fetish list.
No, because, you want to eat the food. Not.
I know. Don't mess it around.
Exactly.
Don't throw it on the kitchen floor.
Totally.